The massive Zilari warship Bloodclaw hung in space like a metal predator. Its dark hull gleamed under the light of the nearby star. Commander Vextar stood on the bridge, his forearms crossed over his armored chest. His red eyes stared at the small human ship floating helplessly in front of them. "Pathetic," he growled, his voice echoing through the bridge. The other Zilari warriors nodded in agreement. They had been conquering worlds for over 300 years. They knew weakness when they saw it. The human ship was tiny compared to the Bloodclaw. It had no visible weapons, no armor, no shields that their sensors could detect. It looked more like a cargo hauler than a military vessel. The humans inside had sent a message asking to talk. They wanted to negotiate. Vextar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "They want to negotiate before we even fire a shot. These creatures are even weaker than the Corvin insects we crushed last year." His second-in-command, Captain Zekron, pulled up the data they had collected about humans. "Sir, our scouts report that human colonies are spread across 12 star systems. Population estimates suggest around 15 billion beings. Their technology appears to be at least 50 years behind ours. 15 billion slaves," Vextar said with satisfaction. "The hegemony will be pleased. Signal their ship. Tell them to prepare for boarding." The human vessel Harmony was small but clean. Ambassador Chen Wei sat in the modest conference room, waiting. She was a middle-aged woman with calm eyes and steady hands. Across from her sat her small diplomatic team, Dr. Sarah Kim, a xenobiologist, and Captain Torres, a military observer who wore no uniform markings. When the Zilari boarding party arrived, they filled the room with their presence. Each warrior stood over 7 feet tall, with thick gray skin and natural armor plating. Their weapons were the size of human children. They moved like experienced killers, because that is exactly what they were. Vextar looked down at Ambassador Chen. "You are the leader of your pathetic species? I represent the United Earth Colonial Administration," Chen said politely. "We hope to establish peaceful relations between our peoples." The Zilari warriors laughed. Vextar's red eyes gleamed with amusement. "Peaceful relations? You misunderstand your situation, small creature. I am here to deliver terms of surrender." Dr. Kim leaned forward slightly. "Perhaps there has been some confusion. We simply want to share this region of space. There are plenty of resources for everyone." "Resources belong to the strong," Vextar snarled. "Your species is weak. You build no warships. You have no military. You send diplomats instead of warriors. You are prey, and we are predators." Captain Torres spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet but steady. "We prefer to solve problems with words before violence." "Words are for the weak," Vextar said. He activated a holographic display showing star maps. "These are your colonies. These are your trade routes. These are your population centers. All of this now belongs to the Zilari hegemony." Ambassador Chen remained calm. "What exactly are you demanding?" "Complete surrender. Your colonies will submit to Zilari rule. Your people will work in our mines and factories. Your ships will carry our cargo. Your scientists will serve our research programs. You have 7 of your solar cycles to comply." "And if we refuse?" Dr. Kim asked. Vextar's hand moved to his weapon. "Then we demonstrate why we are called the lethal beings of the galaxy. We will burn your worlds. We will scatter your people. We will erase your pathetic species from existence." The humans exchanged glances. Ambassador Chen nodded slowly. "We will need time to consider your offer and consult with our government." 7 cycles, Vextar repeated. Not one moment longer. The Zilari boarding party returned to their ship. Vextar immediately sent a transmission to Zilari High Command. The message was broadcast across several systems, ensuring that other species would see it too. The hegemony wanted everyone to witness their latest conquest. The transmission showed the human diplomatic team sitting at their table. Vextar's voice announced, "Behold the latest subjects of the hegemony. These weak creatures call themselves humans. They have been given 7 cycles to surrender completely. They will comply because they are cowards who fear to fight." Then, without warning, Vextar drew his plasma weapon. The beam cut through the air and struck Ambassador Chun in the chest. She fell from her chair, dead before she hit the floor. Dr. Kim screamed. Captain Torres started the stand, but another plasma burst cut him down. "This is what happens to those who displease the hegemony," Vextar announced to the galaxy. "Let all beings know that resistance is futile." The humans had their chance for mercy. Now they face extinction. Dr. Kim, the last survivor, was dragged before the camera. Tears ran down her face as she stared into the lens. "Please," she whispered. "We just wanted peace." Vextar grabbed her by the hair and forced her to look at the camera. "Tell your species what you have seen. Tell them that the Zalari hegemony shows no mercy to the weak. Tell them that they have 7 cycles to surrender or die." He released her and stepped back. "Actually, do not tell them anything." The final plasma burst ended Dr. Kim's life. Vextar looked directly into the camera. His red eyes burned with cruel satisfaction. "Congratulations, humans. You have just begun a war with the lethal beings in the galaxy. You will learn why every species fears the Zalari. You will learn why the strong rule and the weak serve." The transmission ended. On the bridge of the Bloodclaw, the crew celebrated. They had just added another species to their empire without firing a single shot at a military target. The humans would surrender within days, just like all the others. Vextar settled into his command chair, already planning how to divide the human territories among his officers. "Set course for the human capital system," he ordered. "We will arrive just in time to accept their surrender." None of the Zalari noticed the small probe that had been watching from the edge of the system. It had recorded everything. Every word. Every death. Every threat. The probe turned and accelerated toward human space, carrying its terrible cargo of information. Behind it, the Zalari warship continued toward Earth, confident in their victory. They had made their first mistake. Soon, they would discover it was also their last. The emergency meeting room on Luna Base was silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Admiral Sarah Cross stood at the head of the table, her gray hair pulled back in a military bun. Her blue eyes were cold as winter stars as she watched the Zalari execution. Video for the 3rd time, around the table sat the leaders of humanity's true power structure. General Martinez from the Martian Defense Corps, Director Singh from Colonial Intelligence, Fleet Admiral Jiang from the Deep Space Navy, Captain Morrison from the Asteroid Mining Consortium. Each of them watched their colleagues die on screen without showing emotion. "How long since the transmission was received?" Admiral Cross asked. 18 hours, Director Singh replied. "We intercepted it at the listening post in the Vega system. The Zalari sent it wideband to make sure everyone in the galaxy saw it." "Good," Admiral Cross said quietly. "Then everyone will see what happens next." General Martinez leaned forward. "The Zalari fleet is heading for Earth. 47 ships, including 12 battlecruisers. They expect to arrive in 6 days. They expect to find a defenseless world," Captain Morrison added. "Poor bastards." Admiral Cross nodded to her aide. "Send the activation codes." "All of them." Across human space, the real awakening began. On the agricultural world of New Harvest, farmers received coded messages on their personal communicators. They walked calmly to their barns and storage facilities. Hidden panels slid open, revealing military equipment that had been waiting for decades. Plasma rifles, combat armor, heavy weapon systems. The farming equipment in the fields transformed, unfolding into anti-aircraft guns and missile launchers within 6 hours. New Harvest had become a fortress dot in the asteroid belt. Mining ships received similar messages. Their cargo holds opened to reveal military-grade weapons. Their mining lasers rotated on hidden mounts, becoming ship-to-ship cannons. The ore containers they had been hauling separated into individual attack craft. The mining captain of the Stone Crusher smiled as his ship's disguise fell away. Control, this is Destroyer Vengeance. All systems green and ready for combat. On the trade station orbiting Proxima Centauri, merchants and shopkeepers began dismantling their stores. Behind the civilian facades lay military command centers, weapons depots, and tactical planning rooms. The space station itself split into sections, each one revealing hidden weapon ports and defensive systems. The station commander, who had been serving coffee to alien visitors that morning, now wore the uniform of a human Navy Commodore. "All defense platforms are online," she reported. "We're ready to show these reptiles what human hospitality really looks like." The Zalari fleet arrived at Proxima Centauri, expecting to find frightened civilians ready to surrender. Instead, they found a military fortress that had been disguised as a trading post. Commander Vexstar stared at his tactical display in confusion. "These readings cannot be correct. The station shows massive weapon signatures." His sensor officer checked the data twice. "Sir, I'm reading 47 weapon platforms. Heavy plasma cannons. Torpedo launchers. The station's core appears to contain an antimatter reactor." "Impossible," Vexstar snarled. "Our intelligence said this was a commercial facility." His communications officer looked up nervously. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the station." "Put it on screen." The face that appeared was not what Vexstar expected. Commodore Lisa Kane looked like a typical middle-aged human female, but her eyes held something that made Vexstar's warriors step back from their stations. They recognized the look. They had seen it in the mirror when they prepared for battle. "Attention Zalari fleet," Kane said calmly. "You are trespassing in human space. You have murdered our diplomats. You have threatened our people. We are offering you one chance to withdraw." Vexstar recovered from his surprise quickly. "Human female, you face the might of the Zalari hegemony. Surrender now and your death will be quick." Kane smiled, and the expression was somehow worse than if she had snarled. "Commander, you made a critical error in your intelligence gathering. You assumed that because we preferred peace, we were incapable of war. Your pathetic station cannot challenge 47 warships," Vexstar replied. "You're right," Kane agreed. "One station can't. Good thing we have more than one." The space around the Zalari fleet suddenly filled with new contacts. Ships that had been running silent activated their engines and weapons. What the Zalari had thought were asteroids unfolded into attack vessels. What they had assumed were cargo containers revealed themselves as torpedo launchers. The Zalari found themselves surrounded by over 200 human ships. Vexstar, as second-in-command, whispered urgently in his ear. "Sir, our intelligence was completely wrong. These aren't merchants and farmers. These are experienced military personnel." But Vexstar was proud and stubborn. "All ships, open fire. Show these primitives the power of the hegemony." The battle was unlike anything the Zalari had experienced. Human ships moved in coordinated groups like hunting packs. They didn't fight with honor or follow traditional battle formations. They used tricks and deception. They targeted engines and life support systems instead of weapons. They seemed to know exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage. 3 Zalari battlecruisers exploded in the first 10 minutes. The humans had somehow learned the weak points in Zalari armor design. But worse than the tactical surprise was the psychological impact. When Zalari ships were damaged, the crews expected quarter if they surrendered. The humans offered no quarter. They hunted down every damaged ship and destroyed it completely. Captain Rodriguez of the human destroyer Persistence received a surrender signal from a damaged Zalari frigate. Her response was broadcast on all frequencies. "You came here to murder civilians. You executed our diplomats under a flag of truce. You threatened to erase our species. There is no surrender. There is no mercy. There is only justice." The Persistence put 3 torpedoes into the frigate's reactor. The explosion lit up space like a small star. Within 2 hours, 34 Zalari ships were destroyed. 13 managed to escape into hyperspace, but their retreat was recorded by human sensors. Vextar himself barely escaped on a damaged cruiser. His bridge was filled with smoke and the screams of wounded warriors. As they fled, he sent an urgent message to Zalari High Command. "This is Commander Vextar. Human intelligence was completely wrong. They are not weak. They are not defenseless. They have been hiding their true military capacity. They fight like nothing I have ever seen. They show no mercy. They take no prisoners. They are..." He struggled to find words that would make his superiors understand. "They are predators. Request immediate reinforcements. The humans are dangerous." Back at Proxima Centauri, Commodore Kane surveyed the debris field that had once been a Zalari fleet. Her communications officer reported incoming messages from across human space. "Ma'am, all sectors report ready. The Colonial Defense Force is fully activated. Earth Command confirms that Home Fleet is prepared for the Zalari arrival." Kane nodded. "Send a message to Admiral Cross. Tell her we've drawn first blood. The galaxy wanted to see lethal beings in action. Now they'll get their wish." She paused, looking at the wreckage floating outside her station. "And send a message to all human forces. The mask is off. No more pretending to be peaceful merchants and farmers. Show them what Earth breeds." The message went out across human space. The war had begun, and humanity was no longer hiding what it truly was. Captain Maria Rodriguez crouched in the ventilation shaft above the Zalari Military Academy. She had been in this position for 3 hours without moving. Her breathing was controlled. Her heartbeat was steady. She was completely invisible to the alien security systems below. It had taken her team 6 months to get here. 6 months of careful infiltration, studying Zalari culture, learning their language, and becoming invisible in their society. The Zalari never suspected that humans could be so patient, so thorough, so coldly calculating. Through her helmet display, Rodriguez watched Zalari cadets training in the hall below. Young warriors learning combat techniques that had served their species for centuries. They were strong. They were fierce. They were completely unprepared for what was coming. "Shadow Team, report," Rodriguez whispered into her unit. "Shadow 2 in position at the armory," came the first reply. Sergeant Chun had spent 4 months working as a maintenance worker to get access to the Academy's weapon. "Storage. Shadow 3 ready at communications," reported Lieutenant Park. She had posed as a civilian technical specialist, slowly gaining access to the Academy's central computer systems. "Shadow 4 standing by," confirmed Corporal Singh. He was positioned near the Academy's power core, disguised as an energy systems inspector. Rodriguez smiled grimly. The Zalari had made it easy. They never suspected that the primitive humans could move among them undetected. They never thought to look for infiltrators among their own support staff. "Execute Operation Nightmare," Rodriguez ordered. The attack began simultaneously across 12 different Zalari worlds. Human infiltration teams that had been in position for months suddenly revealed themselves. They struck at military academies, training facilities, command centers, and supply depots. The attacks were not random. They were surgical, precise, and devastating. At the Zalari Academy, Rodriguez's team demonstrated why humans had been the apex predators on their homeworld. They moved through the facility like ghosts. They knew every corridor, every security measure, every escape route. They had studied their targets for months. The Zalari cadets never had a chance. Human weapons fired from the darkness. Explosions rocked the building at precisely calculated intervals. The Academy's communication systems went down first, then the power grid, then the armory. But the humans didn't just destroy infrastructure. They left messages. In the Academy's main hall, Rodriguez spray-painted words in the Zalari language. You wanted war. Welcome to the hunt. Similar messages appeared on every world the humans struck that night. We are the shadow in your corridors. We are the fear in your sleep. We are what waits in the dark. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Admiral Korth of the Zalari Third Fleet received reports from across their territory. 17 military installations attacked. Hundreds of elite warriors killed. Vital intelligence stolen. All carried out by small teams of humans who had been living among them for months without detection. How is this possible? Korth demanded. Our security sensors detect any hostile presence. His intelligence officer looked terrified. Sir, the humans weren't hostile when they arrived. They came as workers, technicians, consultants. Our own people sponsored their security clearances. They've been studying us from the inside. The reports kept coming. Human infiltrators had recorded training exercises, copied military plans, and learned the personal habits of Zalari commanders. They knew which officers liked to drink alone, which generals had family on specific worlds, which admirals traveled with minimal security. They've been hunting us for months, the intelligence officer whispered. We never realized we were the prey. News of the human infiltration spread beyond Zalari space. The Galactic Council received detailed reports, and reaction was immediate. Ancient species that had never known fear suddenly felt very afraid. Ambassador Vorth of the Draken Republic called an emergency session. Honored colleagues, we are witnessing something unprecedented. The humans are not fighting a conventional war. They are conducting systematic predation. The assembled diplomats watched tactical recordings of human operations. They saw small teams of humans moving through Zalari facilities like they owned them. They saw the psychological warfare tactics. They saw the cold efficiency. This is not how civilized species wage war, declared Senator Clix of the Altair Confederation. Where is their honor? Where are their formal battle lines? Where is their mercy? Ambassador Zenthi of the peaceful Kurhai Union had been studying the human tactics more carefully. Honored colleagues, I believe we are misunderstanding the situation. The humans are not fighting dishonorably. They are fighting like what they actually are. And what is that? Asked Ambassador Vorth. Zenthi's translator device struggled with the concept. On Earth, they call it an apex predator, a species that evolved to hunt other dangerous species. They are showing us how they survived on their homeworld. The council chamber fell silent. Meanwhile, on the Zalari homeworld, High Commander Gorthek faced the worst news of his military career. 3 more fleets had been destroyed by human forces. Each battle showed the same pattern. Humans appearing where they shouldn't be, knowing exactly where to strike, showing no mercy to the wounded. How do they always know our weak points? Gorthik demanded. His chief engineer provided the horrifying answer. Sir, we've discovered human infiltrators in our shipbuilding facilities. They've been there for over a year, studying our designs. They know the exact location of every critical system on our ships. A year? Gorthik's voice rose to a roar. They've been planning this war for a year? Sir, his intelligence chief said quietly. Based on the evidence we found, they've been planning this war since first contact. Every human we met was gathering information. Every trade deal was reconnaissance. Every cultural exchange was espionage. The implications were staggering. While the Zalari had been congratulating themselves on finding another weak species to conquer, the humans had been systematically studying them like laboratory specimens. Captain Rodriguez and her team were already gone from the academy. They had vanished into the civilian population, carrying new intelligence back to human forces. But their work was not finished. 3 days later, Admiral Korth received a personal message on his private communication channel. The channel that only his family knew about. The channel that was supposed to be completely secure. The message was simple. We know where your children go to school. It wasn't a threat. It was a demonstration. The humans could reach anyone, anywhere, at any time. They had been watching. They had been learning. They had been preparing. Korth immediately ordered his family move to the most secure facility in Zalari space. Within hours, he received another message. We know where you moved them. The psychological warfare was devastating. Zalari commanders began to understand that nowhere was safe. The humans weren't just fighting their military. They were hunting their entire civilization on Earth. Admiral Cross reviewed the reports from Operation Nightmare with satisfaction. The infiltration phase had worked perfectly. Every Zalari military installation was compromised. Every command structure was exposed. Every secure location had been mapped. Phase 2 is ready to begin, reported General Martinez. All human fleets are in position. Admiral Cross nodded. Begin the systematic destruction of Zalari military capacity. Show no mercy. Take no prisoners. Make them understand that threatening humanity was the last mistake their species will ever make. The orders went out across human space. The hunt was no longer secret. The predators had revealed themselves. The galaxy watched in terrified fascination as humanity demonstrated. What had made them the apex species on a world where everything was trying to kill them? The Zalari had wanted war with the lethal beings in the galaxy. Now, they were learning what that truly meant. Ambassador Kethri of the Ashanti Confederacy had seen many things in her long diplomatic career. She had mediated peace between the crystalline Vex and the gaseous Morahi. She had prevented 3 wars and negotiated 7 trade agreements. But nothing had prepared her for stepping aboard a human warship. The Determination looked like every other human vessel from the outside. Clean lines, practical design, no unnecessary decorations. But as Kethri walked through the corridors, she began to notice disturbing details. The walls were lined with what humans called grip strips. Her guide, Captain Martinez, explained they were for moving through the ship during high acceleration maneuvers. But Kethri realized they were also perfect for fighting inside the ship if it was boarded. Every corridor was a potential battlefield. The human crew moved differently than other species. They were constantly alert, constantly scanning their environment. Even in their own ship, surrounded by their own people, they watched for threats. It was the behavior of prey animals, except these creatures were clearly predators. Ambassador Kethri, Captain Martinez said politely, Dr. Walsh is ready to meet with you. The ship's xenobiologist waited in what humans called a conference room. It was spartanly furnished, with basic chairs and a table. Dr. Walsh was a middle-aged human male with kind eyes and a gentle manner. He looked completely harmless. Thank you for coming, Dr. Walsh said. I understand you want to discuss ending the war with the Zalari. Kethri activated her translation device. My government hopes to mediate a peaceful resolution. The Ashanti Confederacy has remained neutral, but we are concerned about the escalating violence. Dr. Walsh nodded sympathetically. I appreciate your position, but I'm afraid you may not fully understand what you're dealing with. Please explain. Dr. Walsh touched the control panel, and holographic displays filled the room. The first image showed a beautiful blue-green world. This is Earth, our homeworld. It looks peaceful, doesn't it? Catherine studied the planet. It did look peaceful. Oceans, continents, white clouds. It appears to be a standard garden world. That's what everyone thinks, Dr. Walsh said sadly. But Earth is what we call a death world. Let me show you what that means. The holographic display changed. Now Catherine was looking at a massive creature with enormous teeth and claws. It was at least 20 times larger than a human. This is called a grizzly bear, a fairly typical predator from Earth. An adult male can weigh 4 times as much as a human and can crush bones with its bite. Humans evolved alongside dozens of species like this. The image changed again. A long, scaled creature with fangs dripping venom. Snakes. Some species can kill a human with a single bite. Their venom causes paralysis and death within minutes. They can strike faster than human reflexes can respond. More images followed. Wolves that hunted in coordinated packs. Great white sharks with rows of razor teeth. Crocodiles that could crush a human in their jaws. Scorpions with deadly stings. Spiders whose venom dissolved human tissue. Every continent on Earth has dozens of creatures that can easily kill a human, Dr. Walsh explained. Our ancestors survived by being smarter, more adaptable, and more persistent than anything trying to kill them. Catherine felt a chill of fear. How did your species survive such conditions? By becoming better predators than everything else, Dr. Walsh said quietly. We learned to make tools. We learned to work together. We learned to think ahead and plan for every possibility. Most importantly, we learned that the key to survival is eliminating threats before they eliminate you. The holographic display showed human hunters pursuing a mammoth across an ice field. The humans were tiny compared to their prey, but they moved with coordinated precision. We didn't just hunt for food, Dr. Walsh continued. We hunted to eliminate competition. We hunted because it was fun. We hunted because we were good at it. By the time we developed agriculture, we had already driven dozens of large predator species to extinction. Catherine as translator struggled with some of the concepts. You mean humans caused other species to die out completely? Accidentally at first. Then deliberately when they threatened our settlements. We learned early that the best way to deal with dangerous predators is to make sure they can never threaten you again. The display changed to show human history. Catherine watched in growing horror as Dr. Walsh explained how humans had waged war against their own species for thousands of years. They had developed increasingly sophisticated ways to kill each other. They had created weapons that could destroy entire cities. We're not proud of our violent history, Dr. Walsh said, but it taught us things that no other species in the galaxy has learned. We know how to fight when we're outnumbered. We know how to survive when everything around us is trying to kill us. We know how to eliminate threats permanently. But humans seemed so peaceful when you first made contact with the galaxy. Catherine protested. Dr. Walsh smiled sadly. We were peaceful because we chose to be. We had learned from our mistakes. We wanted to be better than our ancestors. But the Zilari made a critical error. What error? They assumed that because we preferred peace, we were incapable of war. They thought our desire for diplomacy meant we were weak. They couldn't understand that we were trying to protect them from us. The holographic display showed recent battle footage. Catherine watched human ships moving in perfect coordination, striking with surgical precision, showing no mercy to their enemies. What you're seeing is not human cruelty, Dr. Walsh explained. It's human efficiency. We are doing exactly what we evolved to do. We are eliminating a threat to our species. Kethri felt sick. The Zilari never had a chance, did they? No, Dr. Walsh said simply. From the moment they decided humans were prey, they doomed themselves. We tried to warn them through diplomacy. We offered them peace. They chose war instead. Can't you show mercy? Accept their surrender? Dr. Walsh was quiet for a long moment. Ambassador, let me ask you something. On your homeworld, what is the most dangerous predator? Kethri thought. The mountain cats or the northern continent. They occasionally attack settlements. How do you deal with them? We relocate them to preserve areas where they cannot threaten civilians. Because they're not intelligent. They're just animals acting on instinct. Dr. Walsh leaned forward. The Zilari are intelligent. They made a conscious choice to threaten human civilians. They executed our diplomats. They promised to erase our species. They are not animals following instinct. They are enemies who must be stopped permanently. The terrible logic was undeniable. Kethri realized she was looking at a species that had been shaped by millions of years of violence. They had learned to be efficient killers because inefficient killers didn't survive on Earth. What happens when the war is over? She asked. We go back to being peaceful, Dr. Walsh said. We'll rebuild. We'll trade. We'll explore. We'll help other species develop and grow. But the galaxy will remember what they saw here. What will they remember? Dr. Walsh stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, human warships move through space like a pack of predators. They'll remember that humans are not prey, he said quietly. They'll remember that the peaceful merchants and diplomats they met were apex predators choosing to be civilized. They'll remember that threatening humanity is the last mistake any species will ever make. Kethri looked at the gentle, kind human who had just explained the systematic destruction of an entire military empire with the calm efficiency of a scientist discussing an experiment. She finally understood why the galaxy feared humans. They weren't monsters. They were something much worse. They were efficient. The meeting ended with Kethri's formal withdrawal of the Ashanti peace proposal. The government's official statement was brief. The Ashanti Confederacy recognizes that this conflict is beyond our ability to mediate. We recommend that all species review their diplomatic protocols regarding humanity. What the statement didn't say was equally important. The Ashanti government immediately began reviewing all their interactions with humans. Looking for signs of the predators that had been hiding among them, they found them everywhere. Commander Vextar knelt in the ruins of his command ship, surrounded by human soldiers. His proud warrior's armor was cracked and scorched. His forearms were bound behind his back. Around him lay the debris of what had once been the greatest fleet in Zilari history. The human soldiers didn't point their weapons at him. They didn't need to. Vextar had seen what these creatures could do. He had watched them systematically destroy his entire empire with the cold efficiency of a natural disaster. Admiral Sarah Cross approached, her gray hair gleaming under the emergency lighting. Her blue eyes showed no anger, no hatred, just the calm satisfaction of a predator that had successfully completed a hunt. Commander Vextar, she said in perfect Zilari, you are the last surviving senior officer of the Zilari hegemony. Your empire is finished. Vextar raised his head with what remained of his pride. You cannot kill us all, human. The Zilari are spread across 50 worlds. We're not going to kill you all, Admiral Cross replied. That would be wasteful. Instead, we're going to do something much more effective. She gestured to her aide, who activated a holographic display. The tactical map showed the former Zilari Empire, but the territory divisions had changed completely. Your former colonies now belong to the species you enslaved. The Corvin insect worlds are now independent. The Delphin crystalline systems have been returned to their original inhabitants. The mining worlds you stole from the Orvani Republic are going back to their rightful owners. Vextar stared at the map in disbelief. Impossible. Those species are weak. They cannot maintain control without Solari oversight. Admiral Cross smiled, and the expression was somehow more frightening than her anger would have been. They won't be maintaining control alone. Humanity will be assisting them. You mean you will rule them instead? No, Cross said firmly. We mean we will protect them. There's a difference, though I don't expect you to understand it. The holographic display zoomed in on specific systems. Vextar could see human ships patrolling trade routes, human bases protecting mining operations, human peacekeepers maintaining order. The Terran Protectorate will ensure that what happened to these species under Zilari rule never happens again, Admiral Cross explained. We will guarantee their independence and security. Why? Vextar demanded. What do you gain from this? Admiral Cross was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. Commander, your species made a fundamental mistake about human nature. You assumed that because we could be peaceful, we were weak. You never considered the possibility that we were peaceful because we chose to be. She walked to what remained of the viewport, looking out at the debris field that had once been the proud Zilari fleet. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We survived by becoming the most efficient predators our planet had ever seen. We learned to hunt in groups, to plan ahead, to eliminate threats permanently. By the time we reached space, we had already proven we could destroy anything that threatened us. Vextar listened with growing understanding and horror. But we also learned something else, Cross continued. We learned that strength without purpose is meaningless. Power without responsibility is destructive. We had the ability to conquer the galaxy when we first made contact. We chose peace instead because we had evolved beyond the need to prove our dominance. Then why did you destroy us so completely? Admiral Cross turned back to face him. Because you threatened innocent people. You murdered our diplomats. You promised to erase our species. You forced us to remember what we really are. The implications were staggering. Vextar realized that humanity had been holding back since first contact. The peaceful merchants and diplomats he had dismissed as weak were apex predators choosing not to hunt. What happens to the Zilari now? He asked. Your military is disbanded. Your weapons are confiscated. Your warships are scrap metal. But your people will survive on their homeworld under human supervision until you prove you can coexist peacefully with other species. And if we refuse? Admiral Cross's expression didn't change. Then you will join the extinct predator species from Earth's history. The choice is yours. 3 months later, the Galactic Council convened for the first time since the end of the war. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss the new reality in which humanity had revealed its true nature. Ambassador David Chun, son of the murdered diplomat, stood before the assembled delegates. Unlike his mother, he wore no diplomatic robes. He was dressed in the practical uniform of the Terran Protectorate. Honored delegates, he began in the formal language of galactic diplomacy. Humanity acknowledges that our actions during the recent conflict have caused concern among peaceful species. We want to address those concerns directly. Senator Clix of the Altair Confederation spoke first. Ambassador Chun, your species demonstrated warfare capabilities that far exceed anything we have seen. Many of us fear what humanity might do with such power. Your fear is understandable, Chun replied calmly. But consider this. We have possessed this capability since first contact. We chose not to use it. We preferred trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. We only revealed our true nature when forced to defend ourselves and our allies. Ambassador Vorth of the Draken Republic leaned forward. But the efficiency with which you destroyed the Zilari Empire suggests long-term planning. How long have you been preparing for war? Chun paused, choosing his words carefully. Since the day we first learned we were not alone in the universe. Humans have a saying, hope for peace, prepare for war. We hoped we would never need our military capabilities. The Zolari proved us wrong. The chamber was silent as delegates absorbed this information. What are humanity's intentions now? Asked Ambassador Zenthi of the Korhai Union. The Terran Protectorate will guarantee the security and independence of any species that requests our protection, Chun announced. We will not seek territorial expansion. We will not impose human government on other species. We will simply ensure that what happened to the Zolari's victims never happens again. Senator Klix pressed further. And what prevents humanity from becoming the next galactic empire? Chun's answer was simple and devastating. Because we already could be the galactic empire if we wanted to. We chose something else instead. The truth of that statement hung in the air. Every delegate realized that humanity could conquer the galaxy if they chose to. The fact that they were offering protection instead of domination was the only thing standing between galactic civilization and human rule. Over the following years, the Terran Protectorate proved true to its word. Human fleets patrolled trade routes, protecting merchant ships from pirates. Human peacekeepers mediated disputes between species. Human technology was shared freely with allies, but everyone remembered the lesson of the Zolari. On the former Zolari homeworld, Commander Vextar worked in an agricultural facility under human supervision. His warrior's pride had been replaced by something new. Understanding Dot, he watched human supervisors treating Zolari workers with respect and fairness. He saw human engineers helping rebuild Zolari infrastructure. He observed human teachers instructing Zolari children in peaceful conflict resolution. The humans were doing exactly what they had promised. They were protecting instead of conquering. They were healing instead of destroying. But Vextar never forgot the other lesson. He had seen what humans were capable of when threatened. He had witnessed the systematic destruction of his empire by creatures who fought with the efficiency of natural disasters. He understood now what Dr. Walsh had tried to explain to Ambassador Kethri. Humans weren't cruel. They weren't evil. They were simply the most effective predators the galaxy had ever encountered, and they had chosen to be civilized. Late at night, Vextar would sometimes look up at the stars and think about the message that had started the war. His own words came back to haunt him. Congratulations, humans. You have just begun a war with the lethal beings in the galaxy. He had been right about one thing. There were lethal beings in the galaxy. He had just been wrong about which species they were. The galaxy had learned to coexist with its apex predators. And the predators, for their part, had learned to be shepherds instead of wolves. But everyone remembered that the choice was entirely humanity's to make. Peace, it turned out, was much more secure when everyone knew exactly what the alternative looked like.